Candace Owens is one of the most popular conservative pundits in the US today. She got started back in 2017 with Charlie Kirk on Turning Point USA and has remained very outspoken about the effects of racism and sexism in the United States, and today she's going to defend those beliefs against 20 feminists. This will be covering Candace's second claim of the debate. If you want to watch my review on any of Candace's other claims, make sure to click the link right up here. As somebody who's very anti-feminist myself, I'm chomping at the bit to get into this video. So without anything further, let's get into it.
Hi, my name is Candace Owens. I am a podcaster, a mother, a wife, and also the author of the upcoming book, Make Him a Sandwich. And today I am surrounded by 20 feminists. My second claim is that no career will give women as much joy and fulfillment as raising children.
Not today. Oh, hi, Candace. How are you?
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I'm John. Okay, so I feel like a lot of your arguments today are very rooted in a sort of old school perspective, I have to be honest. Like, I think, and I'm not trying to be insulting whatsoever, I feel as though most people would identify that claim as pretty extreme and pretty like...
Children are extreme?
Well, no, that women would get more happiness inherently from raising kids than having a job or deciding what they want to do with their lives.
So John's already starting this argument off by creating a false dichotomy where women either have to have a career or they have to have children, and they can't have both. That's not what Candace is arguing for. She's saying that women will get more fulfillment out of having children than having a career. She's not suggesting to remove the choice from women or that women shouldn't have a career.
Why is that? I'm just curious. Why would having children, which is just a natural biological conclusion, be something that sounds extreme?
I just said inherently.
Inherently.
That's the
extreme.
inherent expectation.
Yeah.
That's better for women.
It's inherent because it's biological. So I think when we think about things that are inherent, I think biology is a good thing to start with, right? So biologically speaking, men and women come together, they form families, and that's the reason why you're sitting here. That's the reason that I'm sitting here, is because biology is inherent.
Well,
so
I was
saying it's just natural order that we're speaking about, right?
Now, Candace is making an appeal to nature here. It is a logical fallacy to say that just because it's natural or biological that it must be good, but we do have decades of psychological data that shows that women are more psychologically geared towards taking care of people and children, and that does make them happier. And if you look at the top career fields that women have taken all throughout history, basically, it is all pushed towards people-oriented things like nursing, things like teaching, daycare, all of that type of stuff. So it does seem like they're more psychologically geared towards it, and when they have the choice on the open market, they still choose to go into those professions. So it does seem like it makes them happier and fulfilled to be taking care of people and children.
You don't think it's natural for women to get to decide what they want to do with their lives?
I do not think that saying women can decide whether or not they want to go to work or have children is problematic. What I'm saying to you is that women will get the most fulfillment from having a family.
Again, John's trying to push the false dichotomy of women either have to choose a career or children. It's impossible to have both, and Candace pushes back on this, as she should.
Okay, what if there's a little girl born and it's her dream her entire life to be an author or to be, on TV or any of these things, and having children is very expensive. It takes a lot of time. So how is it better for that, and I understand this is hypothetical, but that hypothetical little girl to have children than to pursue these things that would make her happy as she gets older?
I just think that if she publishes the book and she has a child, she would agree with me that the child was more fulfilling and made her happy. That's what I'm happier than the book did, is what I'm saying. And I say this as a published author.
Again, John keeps trying to frame this as if women cannot have both, that it's somehow impossible for women to have both, or that Candace is suggesting that women should give up their career entirely and only focus on their children. None of these things are true. And I feel like if you asked most men who had a family, they would say the same thing, that while their career was great and they're proud of what they did in their career, they're going to be more happy and fulfilled by their family than they were in their career.
It is utter insanity for me to reflect on that and say that I would have rather published Blackout than to have my 3 children.
But why is it rather? You see what I'm saying?
It's not rather. I'm just saying
that's
that
your claim. That's your claim, is that it's better.
It will be more fulfilled. Yes.
Right. So rather.
Well, if it's an either or, if you're saying it's an either or, I'm just saying that if these two things have happened in your life, the thing that will bring you more spiritual fulfillment will be children.
So maybe John just didn't actually understand Candace's argument because, again, he's trying to push that she's claiming that women can only have a career or only have children and that they can't have both. This was basically the premise for his entire argument, and his entire argument is flawed based on that premise because that's not what she was arguing.
Hi.
Naima,
Nice to meet you.
Okay, so currently, women make up about 47% of the workforce. If this were the case and that women were just inherently unhappy or unfulfilled working and would just prefer to be at home, why don't they?
Because we've made that due to prior feminist waves nearly impossible because now, which I believe the reason that the government wanted women to enter the workforce was because it gave them an opportunity to tax a household twice. And so this goes back to what I was saying is that there's a lot of financial pressure that is being exerted on young women to enter the workforce, and they do so blindly under this illusion that somehow entering the workforce is going to make you more fulfilled, like getting yourself into 6 figures of debt, going to college to then take on a career and be in debt and having to pay student loans while you make $35K is going to make you happier. And I'm saying that isn't actually true.
I want to start this off by saying that I think it's hilarious that the fact check brings in 2 legislative pieces of action that took place in the mid to late 1970s when 43% of women were already in the workforce by 1970. So these legislative actions did help women that were already in the workforce, but it didn't actually do much to bring more women into the workforce. Again, my belief is that what allowed women to enter the workforce en masse was the invention of the tampon in 1930, the invention of birth control in the 1950s. This allowed women to go into the workforce more because they were less hindered biologically. There was also the invention of white labor goods, labor-saving devices in the home, like the washing machine and the dryer and the dishwasher that allowed women to still be able to take care of the home and have a lot of extra time to be able to go and work. Now, as for what's currently keeping women in the workforce and preventing them from simply giving up their career, going home, raising their children, where they're going to be more happy and fulfilled, what do you think is going to happen when you essentially double the total labor force available to the economic pool? Well, one, wages are going to stagnate because now that there's double the amount of labor available, that means that businesses are less likely to raise wages in order to keep their employees around because now there's more employees than ever. So if somebody doesn't like what they're being paid, the business can just get rid of them and hire somebody on for the same price or even less because now there's way more workers available. On top of that, you now have double the amount of available income in the home because it's shifting the economy to where now you have 2 people in the home that are working, both the man and the woman are working. So businesses are able to raise their prices on goods because now a household has much more available income to be able to spend. So, rent's going to go up, price of groceries and gas and all of this other stuff is going to go up. And over a 100-year period where women are entering the workforce en masse and doubling the labor pool, eventually we get to a point where things are too expensive for a single income to actually be viable anymore. Now, could this be fixed? Absolutely. But again, it would take multiple generations of effort of women slowly exiting the workforce in order for businesses to not only feel the crunch of a labor shortage because less women are in the workforce, meaning that there's less laborers available in all sorts of positions. So they would need to start paying the men more in order for them to be able to stick around. And the economy would also have to start slowly feeling the effects of the economic shift from a dual income household to a single income household, driving prices down to where a single income household would actually be able to afford everything. And is any of this likely to happen? No, probably not.
Okay, so I hear that.
Yeah.
At the same time, would you not agree that that women can both have a career and have children? I mean, you are actively doing that right now.
And I want to be very clear because I am actively doing it right now. I would be someone that you would call an exception because I get to work from home. I get to wake up in the morning. I don't have a boss, right? I don't have to go into the office from 9 to 5. I get to then therefore spend the entire morning with my children.
So you're an exception, and the 47% of women that make up our labor force are also an exception?
It's almost like she was intentionally trying not to listen to what Candace was saying. She explained why she is an exception. She doesn't really have a boss. She doesn't really have a set schedule. She can essentially choose to work whenever she wants. So she gets to spend as much time with her kids essentially as she wants. This is the case for almost 0% of the people that are in the workforce right now.
it's really bad form when people who are able to stay at home, right, and are able to start working at, 1:00 p.m. as I do after being around their children, the children are running around all day, will then preach to you that every woman can have this. That's not the reality. The reality is that the overwhelming majority of people are stuck behind a desk all day and they're not happy. They're not doing work that gratifies them at all. And at the same time, they're suspending.
Well, that's just what career you've chosen. But I think that the issue
Most
with
people
your
work a 9 to 5. I think that's
okay,
reality,
yes, but
right?
if it's the job that is making them unhappy, then maybe they should have chosen a different career path and not the structure of the career itself. But my issue with this is that not only is it claiming that women can't both be mothers and have jobs, which
Once again, she's pushing this false dichotomy that the guy before her was pushing. Again, this is not what Candace is advocating for at all.
but it also is qualifying what every single woman in this country wants without any clear evidence. I mean, there's 169 million women in this country. How can you say that you know exactly what every woman secretly wants?
Just like in the last video, this is an appeal to exception where if your generality does not apply to 100% of cases, then you must obviously be wrong. This is obviously a logical fallacy.
That wasn't my claim that I secretly know what every single woman wants. I'm saying that if you measure up at the end of your life, what brought you more fulfillment, your career or a children, raising children in your family, we will discover that, and there actually have been studies, people that have gone to people on their deathbeds, and the number one regret that people had was that they gave too much to their careers. And this includes men, by the way.
Well, yeah, that's true. I mean, of course, human relation is going to be valued over money and profit.
So then
but
you
at
don't
the same time, what does that
disagree
even
with my arguments
I do
at all?
disagree with
You're
your
agreeing with my
Yes,
argument.
humans prefer humans over a job, but that's not just singular to women. That's everyone. And my question is, what does that even have to, what is the goal of that? Should every woman quit working and just have a child?
Well, I'm just trying to warn you that if you decide to suspend that pursuit of family because you think that you have to first climb the ladder, a lot of women make that mistake and they don't end up finding a partner.
But that's their right. It's free will.
You
We
will
live in a
definitely
free
have a right
country.
to make a
You don't get to
mistake.
say what people should and shouldn't do.
I don't think my claim is this is what people should or should not do. I'm just simply stating that my claim is that you will be more fulfilled if you focus on
you
trying
don't get to decide
build
what
a
other
family.
people are fulfilled by.
Oh.
It feels like Naima's just made a career out of being bad at debating. So she actually agrees with Candace that people prefer their relationships over their career, but somehow disagrees with Candace's point. That doesn't make any sense. She's actually agreeing with Candace's point, and then she's strawmanning Candace's argument so that she has something to actually fight against. Because again, Candace is not saying that women should not ever have a career or that women that are currently working should just quit their jobs and go raise their kids. She has not said any of this. Her argument was very simple. Women get more joy and fulfillment out of raising children than they will out of their career. And this is known to be generally true.
And I'm saying
Candace,
that
so
actually
can I
women
propose a
and men are
hypothetical?
biologically different. There are differences in our behavior. There are differences in our desires. And I think evidence of the feminist movement, by the way, shows us that. Because even when women enter into the college education space, the pathways of career that we choose are different from men because we're biologically different, right?
Okay, so let's say that this is true, that women truly are more fulfilled at home. Now, the average cost of raising a child a year is around $21,000 or more. So my issue is, are you saying that women should just suddenly stop working and now the onus is entirely on men? Like the society that you're pitching is not sustainable economically.
It was sustained economically.
But it's not right
All
now.
right, pause.
currently.
Naima, you've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your seat.
It's almost like Naima just forgot that the world existed before the feminism of the 1900s. And yes, men have been the sole income earners for the vast majority of households for essentially forever. And that was very much sustainable. We were able to sustain a single income household for an extremely long time. Now, she is right that it's not sustainable right now. But again, we covered this earlier, that is due to the feminist push of the 1920s, along with other inventions in the 1900s that pushed more women into the workforce. And eventually, the economy just slowly adapted to a dual income household to the point that a single income household is no longer viable. And again, that can be fixed, but it's likely not going to.
Hi, I'm
Hi.
Ceci.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. So your claim is that women will be happier at home. I think you're conflating, though, happiness with importance, because I get what you're saying, where a woman can write a book and have kids, but the kids are always going to make her happier. But I think it just means that kids are always going to be more important, not necessarily make you happier. But also piggybacking on Naima, we don't live in an economy where people typically can have a one-income household.
Right.
Whether it be the mom or dad that stays home. And so I think, and you keep bringing up the 1950s, which
Because it was right before the fact.
I just don't know if that's the period of time that you want to go back to.
No, it's just, I'm just going back to the first wave of
But
feminism.
you want to undo progress that's been done. So I'm curious as to what decade you'd be comfortable living in, especially as a Black woman.
I've got to admit, there's nothing funnier to me than when a white person approaches a Black person and questions why the Black person thinks the way that they do just because they're Black. There's also this implicit thing that Candace apparently wants to remove decades upon decades of progress. That's not what she's arguing. Her argument is that in the modern age, women are pushed that they will find joy and fulfillment out of their career rather than having a family. That's not the case. And Harrison Butker got in trouble for this a while back by going to a religious university and telling the women in the audience that their career should come second to their family, that they would find way more happiness and fulfillment out of their family than they would out of a career. And he got blasted for this, called a misogynist and all of this other kind of stuff, just because he told women that their career should not be the most important thing in their life to them. And this isn't only towards women. Men view this the same way. While a career is important, and for men it's necessary to be able to provide for their family, it does not make it more important or more fulfilling than the family does. This isn't something that's only pushed on women. It's pushed on women more because feminism throughout the 1900s has been pushing career on women and saying that it will make them happier. But men already understand this. While career is important, family is much more important and much more fulfilling in the long run than a career ever will be.
As a woman, I think that it was probably a better environment for women when we understood that raising our children was fulfilling.
But some women still do understand that.
Right. And
a lot of women
and I'm one of them.
And I'm here advocating for you
Okay.
to be able to live the life that you want and for other women to be able to live the lives they want.
Again, we're creating this false dichotomy that either women can only work or they can only have children. That's not what Candace is arguing for. She's not, arguing that women should not be allowed to have the choice. She's making the argument that women are going to find much more fulfillment and happiness out of having children than out of having a career.
I have both children and a career, as somebody pointed out. And so the fact that I'm saying that you will be infinitely more fulfilled at the end of the day by raising your children than you will be if you come home and you say, wow, I really crushed it dyeing somebody's hair today. What is it exactly that makes you angry about hearing that? Like, that's what I'm actually trying.
Nothing makes
I'm
me
trying
angry.
to get.
No,
I'm trying to get to the. I'm trying to get to the implicit revolution.
That's the thing, is that no one
when
is
someone
angry.
mentions children.
No, see, no one's angry when you mention children. I get angry, I guess, when you mention that someone should have a children, or you're trying to impose a lifestyle onto people that you want to live, which I think is kind of funny because as someone who's anti-feminism, you practice it more than most women do. I mean, every time you get on your podcast, every time you collect a check, you're practicing feminism.
Okay, that's what you think.
No, that's what it is. Because
actually,
without feminism,
yeah.
you wouldn't be able to exist.
Yeah, people.
I mean, I guess technically in a way she's right, because if feminism didn't exist, then Candace wouldn't be able to constantly be fighting against it, so she wouldn't have anything to talk about. That being said, this idea that feminism is the only reason that women are able to be in the workforce en masse is complete fucking nonsense. 20% of the labor force of 1920 was women. There were plenty of women in the workforce before feminism started making major pushes throughout the 1900s. We really need to get over this idea that feminism was the reason why women were allowed in the workforce, because that's not the case. It pushed more women into the workforce for a variety of reasons, a lot of them negative, but that's not the reason why women were allowed in the workforce. There were plenty of women working before feminism made its moves in the 1900s.
Keep saying, I hate when people say that.
But
because
it's just the
it
truth.
just shows that you haven't done the research to even understand where the feminist
Or you don't know
came from,
history.
which was discovered. Well, that's what I'm saying about you, because it means that you don't understand that a bunch of government officials in the CIA funded the feminist movement. So for all of your hatred for the patriarchy,
I'm so confused.
and
So
speaking
my
about
question
men,
is it bad that they
men
funded it or
wanted-
bad that it just happened?
Men wanted women to go into the workforce. The government, which had a lot of men, it was being
Are
run
you
by
talking about
men.
because World War II occurred and we had to
No,
go
I'm
to
talking-
factories, and then when we left the factories, they forced us back into the homes?
That's not what I'm saying at all. So let me tell you what I'm saying, and then you can respond to it.
Go for it.
Gloria Steinem is considered to be a feminist icon, right?
Mhm.
Because she led these protests. She also had a bunch of music festivals. She got students involved. It is just a fact that Gloria Steinem was funded by the CIA, okay? The CIA, being the male-dominated CIA of the 50s and the 60s, funded those movements. So what do you think was the explicit aim? Do you think it was because the government really wanted you to be more free, that they wanted to encourage women to enter
Well,
the
I have to be honest with
workforce?
you, I couldn't speak on behalf of the government.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And what their intention
Well, I think it's important
was
because you
with
just said that I don't know history. And I think it's pretty important if you're going to sit across from me and say, I don't know history, that you
Yeah,
learn a
but-
piece of history. And
Now, while Candace has the facts on her side here, I do think this is a little bit too conspiratorial for me, and that's coming from somebody who is a conspiracy theorist himself. That being said, if you look at the women's suffrage movement, for example, if you actually research women's suffrage and the movements throughout the late 1910s, you will actually find that far more women were part of the anti-suffrage movements than were part of the pro-suffrage movements. And the pro-suffrage movements didn't start outnumbering the anti-suffrage movements until shortly before the constitutional amendment was passed that gave women the right to vote. And while it is a bit conspiratorial, I mean, she does have a point. Why would the CIA want to get involved and be funding these pro-feminist people? Because if feminists are pushing women into the workforce, then that's more taxpayers that the federal government can collect tax revenue from. This also goes along with the fact that in 1965, the federal government passed the Higher Education Act, which guaranteed the government to be backing the student loans. And if we're pushing more women into college, then they're now going to be stuck with these student loans, meaning that they have to go into the workforce in order to be able to pay off the student loans, which means the federal government is going to be getting more tax revenue. There are also a couple of other weird coincidences. Like if you look at the underlying structure of feminism, it very much mimics the underlying structure of the ideology for communism, but that's a topic for a different video.
then question as
You keep bringing up men, and I think it's funny because we should talk about men more. Like you brought up suicide, they're 4 times more likely to kill themselves.
which is why I don't
And while
believe-
women, we're twice as more often on antidepressants, but that's because we go out and do what we need to do to keep coping.
because we're not happy.
And we need to focus on men and the patriarchy because it's actually oppressed them just as much as women now emotionally, right?
And the rest of her argument here is just basic feminists attacking the patriarchy point, which doesn't actually have any relevance to the conversation.
All right. Jasmine,
to meet
nice
you.
to meet you. Okay, so you say that women are more fulfilled at home with kids than going out into the workforce or getting educated, but that just really doesn't bear out when you look at the stats, when you look at how working mothers are way less likely to be in poverty. Maternal education is the #1 predictor of childhood outcomes, better scores, getting higher incomes in the future, fewer behavioral problems, better mental health. So it's weird to me and college educated women are least likely to get divorced, and they're the only women, the top 10% of women are the only women whose marriage rates are going up. So they're getting married, they're staying married, and their kids are doing better. When you look at stay-at-home mothers, you see that they're more likely to report being depressed, they're more likely to report having anxiety and anger and all these types of things. So how can you say that? Seems like a woman, if you want to get married and have kids, you should go to college and have a career.
So Jasmine made a few different claims just now. Let's dive into them and see exactly how accurate she was. So the first thing she says is that working mothers are less likely to be in poverty than stay-at-home mothers. This obviously should be the case because we're living in an economy that's built off of a dual-income household. But just to go over these statistics from Pew Research, 3% of working married mothers are in poverty versus 15% of stay-at-home married mothers. This is as compared to 27% of working single mothers and 71% of stay-at-home single mothers and 32% of working cohabitating mothers versus 88% of stay-at-home cohabitating mothers. The second thing she claimed is that maternal education is the #1 predictor of childhood life outcomes. There is no evidence for this as far as I'm aware. The single most important predictor for negative childhood life outcomes is whether or not you were raised by a single mother versus a married couple. And there is some correlational data from this from NIH studies that if you complete a college degree, you are far more likely to be married to the biological father of your child. So take that for what you will. The third claim she made is that college-educated women are less likely to divorce than non-college educated women, and this is actually true. From Pew Research from 2015, 78% of women with at least a bachelor's degree can expect their marriage to last at least 20 years, compared to 49% of women that went to college but didn't get a degree, and 40% of women who only have a high school diploma or less. She also claimed that college-educated women are more likely to get married than non-college educated women, and that's also true. The marriage rate for college-educated women has remained particularly stable, while the marriage rate for non-college educated women has sharply declined over recent years. And now we get into the reasons for why these last two facts are accurate. And it's because the economic stability provided by a college education, which if you don't know, if you are going to college and you get a college degree, your average lifetime earnings are much higher than people who don't go to college. That economic stability makes your marriage more stable and also means that you are more likely to be attractive to a partner that is looking for somebody else who is economically stable. And the last claim that she made is that working women are less likely to use antidepressants or anti-anxiety medications than stay-at-home women. And this is true by and large because stay-at-home women typically isolate themselves a bit more. They don't go out as much, et cetera, et cetera. However, there is a 2012 study done by the NIH that shows that if you account for things that are typically associated with poverty, for instance, if you increase their net worth, if you give them better access to health insurance, et cetera, then there is essentially no difference between the physical and mental health of steadily employed women working 35 or more hours a week and stay-at-home women that work less than an hour a week on average. All in all, a mixed bag of things that, when you look at them a little more in depth, don't really seem to have the same hit as they would otherwise.
Pew Research,
Right.
University of
Okay.
California. In fact, working mothers today spend more time with their children than women did in the 1960s that were at home.
Okay, well,
And that is a very bold and surprising claim to make, but it does actually happen to be true. Working mothers of today are, on average, spending as much time with their children as stay-at-home mothers did in the 60s and 70s. Now, how are they doing this? Well, there's a number of different ways. Number one is people are starting to have children later in life to where they're more economically stable and raising a child makes logical sense. They're also having smaller families, so they have less children to raise, which means they can spend more time with each individual child. There's labor-saving devices in the home more often than not, so there's not as much time spent on doing labor in the home. When they are doing labor in the home, they'll typically get their children involved with it. So if they're, washing dishes or something, they'll get their children involved and have them help wash the dishes. If they are doing leisure activities, like they're sitting down and watching TV, they're typically getting their children involved in that as well. Now, if you think about all of this for a minute or two, you start to realize that the stay-at-home women are probably doing these exact same things. If they're doing labor in the home, they're probably getting their children involved. If they're having leisure time at home, they're probably getting the children involved. And it makes you wonder if these are correlated with the fact that stay-at-home women typically have higher rates of depression and anxiety because their entire life is being focused around their children and they're not going out and branching out and having other social interactions with other people. They're not broadening their social network. So there is a possibility that they're actually spending a little too much time with their children than they should be, because they should also be having outside interactions and, having a friend group, having a social support network and all of this. And if they're spending too much time with their children and they're basically making their children the core part of their life, that can get missed. And on a related note, this could actually be the killer of most marriages because, as we know, the number one reason why most marriages dissolve is due to a lack of commitment through self-reports. And typically what happens when couples have children is they focus their entire life around their children and they lose that connection between themselves and their partner. And that's extremely important, not just for the marriage, but also for the children, because as I said earlier, the number one predictor of negative life outcomes for children is being raised in a broken home, whether that is with a single parent or in a step-parent household. It can actually be even worse in some cases. So I think something that also needs to be fixed, that's all related to focusing on family over career, is we need to be focusing on our relationships with our partner and making sure we don't lose that just because we have children.
Women that are at home are obviously spending more time with their children than the people who are at work.
And their
today.
children are not faring off any better, and they're faring off worse.
How are you measuring their children faring off worse?
How likely they are to higher incomes, better scores, fewer health problems, fewer behavioral issues, and better mental.
And again, all of these associations are typically much more correlated with either poverty or being raised by a married couple versus being raised in a broken home, whether that is a single parent or in a step-parent household.
Just to get back to the claim that I'm making here, is that it is obvious that women who have children are going to be more fulfilled.
How is
right?
that obvious? Because you said so?
No, it's not obvious because I said so. It's because when you look at all the statistics in terms of women who are choosing not to have families, they are, as the person who just sat here before you mentioned, they are suffering from more depression. They're suffering from more anxiety. And
that's not true.
Okay.
Yes, actually, this is extremely true. Women without children typically report much higher rates of depression and anxiety than women with children. There was a study done in 1996 on middle-aged and elderly people. I think it was from age 50 to 75. And childless women were typically 50% more likely to report high levels of depression than women with children. And this was particularly true for women that were infertile or involuntarily childless, meaning they just never found a man to have children with. Now, marital status plays a bigger role in loneliness and depression. If you are unmarried in your middle age and elderly years, you are more likely to be depressed than if you were childless. But to say that childless women are less depressed, less anxious, less lonely than women with children is just a complete lie.
It is true. It is actually true that women who are choosing their careers over starting families are finding themselves leaning more onto medicines like Xanax, anxiety-inducing medicines, and depression because they suspended that time frame where women really should be looking to find a partner and to start a family because they were instead pursuing their careers.
And why are they better off?
It is totally a dishonest narrative that men and women want the same things out of life. We don't. We absolutely do not want the same things out of life. In fact, we don't even measure success the same. Men and women don't even measure success the same.
So,
okay?
but tell me how the women who are working and getting educated, why are they faring off better in all of these?
And this is again because working mothers are typically less likely to be in poverty than stay-at-home mothers. Although for married mothers, this doesn't seem to be a problem because only 15% of stay-at-home married mothers are in poverty. And because, as I said earlier, there is a massive correlation between getting a college degree for women and staying married to the biological father of their children, which drastically improves child metrics across the board. Because again, the number one predictor for negative life outcomes for children is being raised in a broken home, mostly a single mother home.
You that I do not believe they are faring off better in all of these measures.
Because of what?
I am telling you that we are looking at totally opposite statistics. So you're sitting here telling me that the statistics show that women who are working are producing better children. But I am saying that women that grow up in a two-family home where the mother stays at home are faring off better than the children who are being raised in an environment
where the women are working?
Where both of the parents are working away from the home. I do get to work from home.
No. But
that's the irony.
I've watched your show. You talk about all the nannies you hire. And it's so hard to find a good nanny.
I never talked about all of the nannies I hire.
But you have.
I spoke about how difficult it was to find a babysitter who knew how to cook a meal. And that's because
you don't need a babysitter. You could retire right now.
To let people
I forgot that the only reason that you would ever need a babysitter is because the mother happened to be working, so there'd be nobody to look after the children. It used to be a common thing, especially if you go back and watch old 90s sitcoms, that you would hire a babysitter because the parents wanted to go out and actually enjoy themselves for a night and not have to worry about their children 100% of the time. But I guess that's just a foreign concept to people these days.
Are you spending as much time with your children as you possibly can? Because that's the way to get the most fulfillment.
No, and that's what I'm trying to say. I am speaking to you
as... then stop.
Okay,
This would be a good argument if Candace's argument was that women should just stop working and should only be raising their children at home. But once again, that is not what she is saying.
Do you want to start with me working at home? Because I work at home. You just said something about me
You
working at home.
travel all around the world.
Okay,
you do speeches, and I love that. I love how ambitious you are. That's a really great trait. And if you were truly said that, you would be more fulfilled. Now, one thing you do find is women, they don't want to stay at home when you pull them. They just want flexible working hours and flexible working conditions like you have. And I think we should all advocate for that. It's not one or the other. But when you sit here and you go, you'll be more fulfilled doing this and spend all your time doing that, we would love for you to leave the public eye and go focus on what makes you fulfilled.
Okay.
That was a good dig at the end. I'll give you props for having wit, but once again, you're strawmanning the entire position that she has. She's saying essentially the same thing that Harrison Butker said. Your career can be important, but you're going to find more happiness and fulfillment out of your family and your children. She is not saying, and didn't say at any point that I ever heard, that women should just not work at all. And she's not saying that your career will not give you any fulfillment at all. She is saying that you are going to find yourself much happier and much more fulfilled if your life focuses on your children and your family and not your career. And again, this logic doesn't only apply to women. If you ask men the same question, they are going to find more happiness and fulfillment in their family and in their marriage and with their children than they ever will at work. It is an extremely, extremely, extremely rare amount of the population of both men and women that get more fulfillment and enjoyment out of being extremely successful in their career than they ever would out of a family. That is an extremely, extremely, extremely small amount of the population. We should not be structuring society to benefit the extremely small part of the population. We should be structuring our society and our ideas around what is going to benefit the most amount of people. And once again, what is going to benefit the most amount of women is if we are putting most of our focus on our family lives and on our children rather than on a career. I think Candace did just fine defending herself on this claim. Most of the arguments that the people presented were strawmanning her position, saying that she claimed that women shouldn't work and that they should only be raising their families when that's not what she said. Jasmine, surprisingly, was the most competent of them all, but if you apply a little bit of reasoning and logic to the facts that she presented, again, most of this doesn't boil down to women working are better for their children than women not working. A lot of this has to do with the fact that more college-educated women are staying married to the biological father of their children, which that is what provides the most positive life outcomes for the children, not the fact that the woman is college-educated. It's only that they're college educated insofar as that affects their relationship with the father of their child and the fact that they will stay married to them. And everything else is typically poverty related. If you are not working, it is more likely that you are going to be in poverty. Again, this doesn't really affect married couples as much as it affects single women and cohabitating women. As I mentioned earlier, almost 1/3 of single and cohabitating women are in poverty while they are working, and almost 90% of them are in poverty when they are staying at home. So this mostly has to do with keeping women married to the biological father of their children, and less so the fact that they are going to college and getting a career. Now, if you haven't been able to tell by now, I am pretty conservative. I do think that women should be focusing on childcare, raising the best children that they can, making a household for their family, et cetera, but I have no problem with a woman also making a career. I just think, just like Candace does, that women are going to be much more fulfilled and much more happy if they focus on their family and they focus on their relationship with their partner rather than focusing on a career. And I think men should be doing the exact same thing because, once again, it's an extremely rare person that gets happiness and fulfillment mostly from their career and would get less happiness and fulfillment from a family. We're not all Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. Most of us are just the regular guy at the cash register at Walmart. But hey, I'm just some white guy. What do I know? Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. If you liked the video, make sure to give me a like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. If you didn't like the video, make sure to give me a thumbs down and let me know what I got wrong in the comments. Thanks again for watching the video. Hope to see you in the next one.